What happens when everything is shared? Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Future in 5. My name is Jacob Morgan. This is where I share my thoughts, ideas, and commentary on the future of work, usually and hopefully in 5 minutes or less. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to give a big thanks to the folks over at WorkMarket that are sponsoring this episode of The Future in 5. WorkMarket's a vendor in the freelance management system space. Check them out at workmarket.com. They help organizations and freelancers connect. So if you're an organization looking to work with freelancers or a freelancer looking to get more gigs, then you will find workmarket.com pretty interesting. So I sent this out in my newsletter a week ago, and it's just kind of an interesting thought experiment. What happens when everything is shared? And what I mean by that are platforms and sites like Uber and Airbnb. Now you look at something like Uber, when it first came out in the Bay Area, the drivers that were participating in Uber were doing very well. All of them were saying they were making great money, they were happy, everything was fine and dandy. As consumers, we were also able to get plenty of Uber rides. Now look what happens a couple of years later. I take Uber a lot because I travel quite frequently for work. And every time I get into a car, I ask the Uber driver, how long have you been driving? What are you seeing? Are you happy? Do you enjoy driving with Uber? And I'm starting to hear a lot of responses from drivers that are saying, you know, it used to be good, but it's not anymore. And I've actually noticed this conversation change quite a bit over the past couple of years, where it seems like a couple of years ago, Uber drivers were able to work, maybe 8, 9, 10 hours and make pretty good money. Now the drivers are telling me that the market is overly saturated. Some of them are having to work 12, 13, 14, 15-hour days to make what they were making before, and that it's so competitive that it's very hard for them to make a living doing something like Uber or working with something like Uber. So that kind of makes me think, what happens when we get to a world where everything is shared? When you oversaturate a market with something that can be shared, who does that really benefit? Sure, it might help the consumer because they get access to more things, but the people that are providing those things and services are no longer going to be seeing that value, which I think means that eventually they might stop sharing. So it's kind of like it feels a little bit like a paradox where the growth and the success of the sharing and collaborative economy is also its biggest danger. Because when you oversaturate something with too much of anything, Barry Schwartz talks about this in his book, The Paradox of Choice. When you oversaturate something with too much, it kind of, there's no balance. It doesn't feel like there's much balance. As consumers, we can easily take advantage of it, but even now, when you look at something like Airbnb, it gets harder and harder to find a listing because there are so many of them. With Uber drivers, as consumers, it's easy for us to get a driver, but the Uber drivers are getting more and more unhappy because the market is being oversaturated. Now, the challenge with this is that there isn't much government oversight. There's not a lot of rules and regulations around this. So companies like Airbnb and Uber, I use both. I love both. They're raising as much money as they can. They're trying to grow in as many markets as they can. And their plan is pretty much world domination, right? They're trying to go everywhere, which makes sense. But it still makes you wonder what happens and what will happen if we get to this situation where everything becomes shared. So I actually want to ask you that. I'm curious to hear what you think. Look at an area like the Bay Area or New York or other parts of the world. What do you think is going to happen when everybody is driving for Uber? When every place that you can see around you is available for Airbnb? Who knows, right? Curious to hear what you think. Leave me a comment below. Personally, I think when things get overly saturated, it's going to cause people to take a step back and say, wait a minute, there's no value in it for me. I'm going to try to do something else here. But hey, I could be wrong. It could also be sort of like online dating, right? When you have a profile on multiple different sites. So as an Uber driver, you'll have an Uber profile, an Airbnb profile, a TaskRabbit profile. You'll be everywhere doing everything. That'll just be your full-time gig is being a freelancer in many different places. Leave me a comment below. I know I've been saying that. Let me know what you think. Jacob@thefutureorganization is my email. That is if you have any suggestions for topics or if you and your company want to sponsor a series of episodes on The Future in 5. If you want to get access to more videos, articles, podcasts, or check out the Future of Work show, which is where I go inside of companies to interview their executives and tour their offices, it's right here on the YouTube channel. Just subscribe and look at the playlists and you'll see the Future of Work show in there. I'm also on Twitter at Jacob M. So that's it for me. Leave you with a thought. What happens when we share too much or when everybody starts sharing? I'll see you next time on an episode of The Future in 5. Hey, are you interested in the future of work? If so, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get all the latest content on the future of work and stay up to date on all the latest trends and happenings. Not to mention, you will make me very, very happy. Make sure to subscribe.